Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Tower of Babel podcast. As always, I am Julian Musha. I'm joined by Jeremy Kozier.
Hello.
And we are going to be talking about and reviewing James Gunn's Suicide Squad today.
The Suicide Squad.
Yeah, sorry, the Suicide Squad. To be very clear, you don't want to get it confused with just Suicide Squad. And, you know, to be fair, we will kind of we'll recap our expectations or kind of what we thought of the original Suicide Squad, how that kind of plays into maybe the larger narrative, or whether this is a sequel or reboot or however that works. We'll get to that in just a moment. Before we do, though, I will just remind everyone, follow us on Twitter at Tower Babblecast, facebook.com/TowerBabblecast, and head over to our website, towerbabblepodcast.com, to find everything that we do. We also do record this live. The best way to keep up with finding out when we go live, which I don't really, shame on me because I never really give enough, heads up to people, but is Twitter. That's the best place you can keep up with that. And we are recording live now. We're live on YouTube, we're live on Twitch, and we're live on Twitter. So that's where you're going to be able to find us there. And you can head over to towerbabble.ca or towerbabble.podcast.com/live if you ever have the urge or just are wondering, I wonder if they're on live right now. You can head over to there and you'll get a kind of a embedded Twitch feed to hang out with us there. So, of course, if you have thoughts about the movie, throw them in the chat. We'd love to hear them. As always, for our reviews of films like this, it's going to be full spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie, go grab a ticket at your local theater, because or not, I guess, if you have HBO Max, which we do not up in Canada. And then come back and listen.
We can still get it in Canada, though, right? Something like digitally.
I think so, but not on HBO Max.
No,
right? Some other form. I think it depends on the movie. Like, I think with Wonder Woman, it was available through Crave, which I refuse to support. Like, I hate Crave. I think it's one of the worst streaming services out there. So I if you're an American, lucky you.
How did you watch the Friends reunion then?
Jeremy, it's funny. I didn't.
You still haven't watched it?
I'm not watching. I'm not gonna watch that.
Goodness.
Why? Do you think I'm like a big Friends head?
No, I thought you were just like convinced after Dan and I kind of chatted about it for a bit there, but I guess not.
It's gonna take more.
It's the most viewed thing in Crave history.
Well, yeah, I feel like that's a low bar. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's over Game of Thrones. I guess
that was it was Game of Thrones, but then that was dethroned by Zack Snyder's Justice League,
right?
And now Friends reunion.
So as a big fan of the Snyder Cut, are you upset that it was overtaken by the Friends reunion? I feel like it's such a funny thing to say.
Mean, it has other records in other places. Like, I think in China, it has more views than Endgame. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's how? It seems weird to me. I mean, maybe I don't know. I don't know all the nuances there, but that's an odd one to me. Seems like.
We'll revisit that.
Yeah, we certainly will. So let's get into this. I guess before we start talking about this version of the Suicide Squad, we should talk about the previous version of the Suicide Squad, right? The David Ayer version, or I guess David Ayer with an asterisk version, because the version of David Ayer's movie that we got wasn't really David Ayer's movie. Now, Jeremy, we briefly chatted about this coming out of the theater, having watched this most recent one, and we decided, okay, well, let's save it for the show. Since then, I did see the statement that David Ayer put out. I don't know if it was on Twitter. I heard it on a podcast. They read it out, where he kind of basically said, "This is my last thing I'm going to say about it. My version of the movie is very different than the one that came out. We put a lot of work into it, but it is what it is, and I'm not going to talk about it anymore." Which I got to give David Ayer a lot of respect for. I would love to see the David Ayer cut. Apparently, very, very, very few people have seen it. It's unlikely it seems unlikely that we will. I'm also okay with that. Like, okay, fine. Let's not. I mean, I just don't want to retread this whole thing. Yeah, it's because it's like we've already got this next movie. It's like, it just complicates things so much. And it's like, what are we gonna do?
At the end of the day, the Suicide Squad can always just be like a new mission, a new roster.
Sure, yeah.
Thing. It doesn't necessarily have to have all this connective tissue. I mean, this one it does from the original, but it's very little. It's somewhat of a soft reboot. Like, you don't necessarily even see the first movie, but if you do, it does a lot of the or some of the lifting in terms of what to expect and how the Suicide Squad works. Because like here, they do a really good job of quickly, summarizing it and getting to it. It's pretty sweet how fast we get into it in terms of pacing.
Yeah, I mean this version of the Suicide Squad does a great job of, like, I think much better job than the first version did
Yeah,
in
I don't
introducing
even
the characters.
remember honestly the first movie to be quite honest with you.
That, like, it's see, I think so. Let's just start there for a second, and I'll just repeat kind of, or maybe not even repeat, because I don't remember exactly what my feelings were on that movie coming out. We could go check our review. I don't
I think
remember exactly.
I remember we had very low expectations, and then we were kind of like, it's fine or it's okay or whatever.
Yeah, it was
Nothing to ride home about, and then just nitpicking, things that don't make sense, and
the third
nitpicking the
act.
Joker.
Yeah,
Essentially,
well,
and the
yeah,
joke in the
the
third
Joker
act.
is brutal. The third act
Yeah,
is absolutely terrible. Like,
yeah.
maybe one of the worst third acts in, like, in up. So I was struggling with a movie to put on behind us. Jeremy, as I put on Green Lantern.
I know. I
um,
know. I tuned into the Twitter quick and I saw I saw that.
oh,
I was
that's
like, what
funny.
the heck?
Well, I was like, there's just not a lot of DC movies on
No,
streaming
the
apps.
intro is actually phenomenal. Like, you can't really hear it, but maybe
Well,
not
it's on
phenomenal,
right
but
behind
it's
me right
really
now.
cool
Yeah,
because it's narrated by um is narrated by the guy who plays Tomar Ray or
I
something. I
believe it
think.
is. Yeah, that, like,
Yeah,
British accent guy. Yeah, I think
yeah,
so. It's yeah, it's great. But, like,
yeah.
the movie, the opening is great, but the rest of the movie is not.
Correct.
But speaking of third acts, the third act of Green Lantern is maybe, it's just so brutal. Like,
Yeah,
it's just
a
so
lot of
disappointing.
bad third acts in DC in the past. There,
Yeah, Wonder Woman
even Wonder Woman.
1984,
Yeah, it's
the
got
first
Jeff
Wonder
Johns all
Woman.
over it.
Yeah, like, it's just it's really they and to be fair, I mean, a lot of movies struggle with the third act. That's not it is hard to stick the landing. But, speaking of Suicide Squad, I think its biggest flaw was that it was super forgettable. Right, they really leaned into those needle drops, which turned out to not even be David Ayer's choice. There's a whole other score that we never heard,
Oh yeah.
and I think that's
Yeah, I mean,
like, for me, the biggest
I remember
mistake.
talking about it. Like, you were mentioning, like, when you discovered that they basically gave the movie to like a movie editing or
A trailer
a
editing,
trailer
yeah.
editing company,
Yeah.
and then just got all these radio hits and all these celebrities to kind of just go on the soundtrack,
Mm-hmm.
and it ended up making like a pretty good amount of money. Like,
Dude, it holds. I don't know if it still holds the record, but it's like either one or number two for biggest
yeah,
August opening of all time.
yeah,
So that's the thing, that is the one, like, asterisk that goes next to the Suicide Squad, or to
Mhm.
the original Suicide Squad, which is that it made a shit ton of money. Like,
yeah.
way more. I remember it was. I don't know if it was around the same time that Venom came out, but I think it was, because I remember just thinking, like, man, this is the worst. Like, why? Like, Venom made a whole bunch of money, and I'm like, this movie's bad, and it's making lots of money, and I think the Hollywood's going to learn
It's,
the wrong
yeah.
lessons from this.
Well, sometimes it's just the characters that people are,
Will Smith,
they're excited to see. Well, the actors and characters, like, yeah.
yeah,
But with that one, I think it was just marketed well to a specific audience,
mm-hmm.
and they all showed up. It's just funny that, like, what if it was just the David Ayer, like, original
It probably
vision?
wouldn't have made as much money. Like,
Yeah, maybe, yeah, because the market would
yeah,
have been different. You wouldn't have
yeah.
had that's the same soundtrack and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll never know, I guess, right? So
I guess, I mean, and that's the thing. It's like, let's just judge these movies for what they are, right? Like,
Mhm.
and that's really all we can do, right? Like, it's like, oh, well, it would be better if it was David Ayer. Like, maybe not.
Well,
Like, I don't
well,
know.
we can,
We don't know.
but I mean, I think it's fair now to say that I think we're a bit beyond that, specifically with Justice League and the Snyder Cut, and just
Right.
what that was, what that represents in Hollywood. Just such a crazy situation that
Mm-hmm.
we'll never. I don't think we'll ever see something like that. Like, if we do, it would be the Air Cut. I'd
Yeah, I
imagine,
think
because
that's so
you
funny, because
know,
I think you're right. I think that's the only other, like,
yeah,
most obvious example. But it's like, it just seems so unlikely to me
right.
that
But
they would release it.
it is, because we'll get to James Gunn's his movie here in a sec,
Mm-hmm.
but with David Ayer kind of putting it out there for the final time, a lot of actors are being asked, specifically like the new cast, like John Cena and all that stuff. They're all in support of it, so it seems like it can be a positive thing, but it's just really up to the company itself to somehow give that to the fans, because I think it'd be easier to kind of make or finish up
I
than it
think it's
was the
done.
Snyder Cut. Yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe not done in the same sense. Like, I don't know, because people said the same thing about like Snyder Cut. Oh, it's done, it's done, it's done. It's like,
Yeah.
well, it wasn't. But like this one's probably a lot closer to, like he said, it's like he's got a full cut done. So it's like, you know, either way, like I said, we just don't know if it's to me, if we do get it, it's like that's just gravy, right? Like,
Oh, for sure.
sweet if we do. If not, the version, the original Suicide Squad, though not great, is fine. It's just its biggest fault is that it's just so forgettable. Like it introduces us to Harley Quinn though, and she's obviously phenomenal, and we still have her portrayal of that character still endures today, right?
Yeah.
So it does have some enduring kind of elements to it. Obviously, Jared Leto's Joker makes his premiere in that movie, and he kind of was a short-lived Joker, right? And we've kind of obviously he was made fun of a lot for that portrayal specifically, which I don't think will ever really get the opportunity to redeem. I think he's just like it's gonna go down in infamy for what it is, unfortunately. But I mean, this movie. So let's move over to the new stuff. And I will mention, since we were talking about the box office for Suicide Squad, this version of the Suicide Squad, the new version, not doing so well at the box office. Obviously, lots of factors for that, right? It's available on HBO Max. It's COVID is making a big resurgence in the States, but it's doing decent enough numbers overseas. The one thing that's really interesting here, and it's so frustrating for me, but it's like Suicide Squad, garbage movie, made so much money. This movie has a Metascore of 74. Its IMDb rating is 7.6. It's widely regarded by critics, at least, to be like a good movie. People like it from a critical standpoint. But no one's going to go see it. So it's like, what the hell do you need to do? Like, do you have to make shit movies for people to see them? Because like, I hope not. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's tough. I mean, but I think even like we got one trailer a while ago, and then a new one. We kind of just knew what to expect from this thing. It has all the baggage, whatever you want to call it, with James Gunn leaving Marvel, coming to DCU,
Sure.
whatever that does for certain fan bases. But I don't know. I mean, I think we knew what to expect going into this, but I didn't necessarily expect it would underperform. But I think, again, it's just the world isn't really normal, so I don't know. And with the
It's
whole
hard to
HBO
judge.
Max thing and Jason Kilar kind of kicking that off, in the beginning of the year, like that was kind of dubbed a failure pretty quickly. So
Right.
this is just kind of trapped in that, I guess.
Well,
Has to
and
find
like
out.
this is all coming at the same time that you have Scarlett Johansson suing Disney over the Premier
Black Widow.
Access stuff with Black Widow, right? Like there's just so much turmoil in Hollywood around this streaming services stuff that, and if you plus you include COVID, it's just like there's just no way I just don't think there's too many factors to be able to parse why a movie is or isn't performing right now. I think the most important thing for these movies is that they are well received, right? That people like them, which was not the case for Wonder Woman 1984, right? People did not like that movie.
If you were going to say that, I'm like, that is, it's the opposite with that one, right?
Right.
It made made money, but
yeah, right. That's another example. Like it's just like I think. For the record, I think like this
then
movie.
They announced a sequel like a day later.
Well,
like they're gonna make the third one. It's like, come on.
But but what are they gonna do? Not make another Wonder Woman movie? Like, come on.
No,
you know what I mean? I think the best thing that can happen to the DC movies moving forward is that they take a much closer tack to what Suicide Squad took here. Not necessarily rated R, but being much more focused, and being better written is going to be important, right?
And that ties into the larger conversation, right, with the studio, with these directors. Like this is written and directed by James Gunn.
Yes,
it was promoted as it's his baby. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And when that happens, this is what you get. You get a quality movie that will stand the test of time, that will look back as just a classic Suicide Squad feature.
Totally, yeah.
And it's got all the right parts. So, I don't know. I mean, I thought it was really good.
Okay, I agree. I think it seemed like maybe you thought about it a little bit more since you came out of the movie. It seemed like you weren't as ready to like hype it up coming right out of the movie, but I really liked it walking out of the theater, and I
Yeah.
think I like it more the more I think about it. Of course, it does have elements that aren't perfect. We'll talk about those in just a moment, but overall, I think this version of the Suicide Squad is miles ahead of the first version. I mentioned focused. I just think I just really appreciate this movie willing to just tell the story it wants to tell. It doesn't feel like it needs to carry all this extra baggage. And I'm so used to movies, especially in the DC stuff, and like even you can even point to the Snyder cut when it's like there's this like that final moment with Martian Manhunter, and it's like, man, like this doesn't need to be in here. And this movie doesn't do any of that, minus maybe the post credit scene. But it's like if you're gonna do any of that stuff, I guess that's where it's gonna have to be. And that ties into that whole other Peacemaker series that's going to come. We can talk about that a little bit too. But I just think it's just nice that there's like, okay, there's a reference to Superman, but that's about as far as it goes. Like the rest is just like, if you want to look for connections, it's little stuff here and there, and it's not plot heavy, and it doesn't encumber the story. Which, again, maybe that's like a low bar, but it's like, okay, I can get behind that. That's great. I really appreciate that. I think it's very funny. It's obviously very violent. We can debate the merits of whether or not it needs to be rated R or not. I think you could easily make this a version of this movie that's PG-13, and it would be just fine. So you just need to rework a few jokes. I don't know. And then I just think overall, like we haven't had like a really fun superhero movie like this, from DC in a while. We can turn the clock back about a year and a bit and go to Birds of Prey. Saw a pretty funny tweet today. I don't remember who it was by, but it was basically like, oh, you like Suicide Squad and didn't like Birds of Prey? Oops, you actually did. You actually did like Birds of Prey because they're very similar. Jeremy, I don't think you've seen it, Birds of Prey.
I think I did. I just couldn't. I was just so bored by it, I guess.
I mean, I don't
But
know how.
I have heard something to compare it to that. I have heard someone say that the Suicide Squad does what Birds of Prey tried to do, but like a million times better. So I don't know if that
Well, yeah,
makes
I
any
don't. I
sense.
mean, I never hated Birds of Prey. I liked it for what it is. Especially Ewan McGregor's performance as Black Mask is just so fun to watch. Like it's worth it just for that performance, in my opinion. I think they share a lot of similar DNA. Obviously, Harley Quinn being in both movies helps that, but it's a good movie and it's pretty fun. And this movie carries a lot of that same sense of joy basically throughout the movie. That it's not trying to be so self-serious all the time. And again, low bar, but I appreciate here. And then also the performances here are like I think legitimately great. Like I don't think there's a bad performance in here, including Sylvester Stallone, who turns out plays King Shark, which I didn't even know when I was watching the movie.
Oh yeah.
So there's a quote here. He's James Gunn like reached out to Sylvester Stallone. He's like, "Hey, I've got a role for you. I wrote it for you. Where does it go here? I wrote the role for you in the Suicide Squad. It won't take too much of your time." And it's like it's a big, kind of chubby human-eating shark. And Stallone was like, "Anything for you, brother." So yeah, he came in and like honestly, here's the thing. It's a pretty earnest performance from Stallone as a talking shark. It's not a lot of lines, but it's like it doesn't seem like he seems like he took it seriously enough. Like, okay, these are my lines. I'm going to read it like I'm a talking shark. And it's kind of funny now thinking back on the movie. It's like it does kind of sound like this kind of like extremely exaggerated funny version of like the impression of Sly Stallone, or like he's like like something like that. It kind of sounds like that, but him as a shark, which kind of so I totally love that. But even like just the core performances, Idris Elba is great in this movie. What did you make of the performances here?
Yeah, Idris Elba is clearly the standout. I think he's easily the best. And then just his relationship with John Cena and just or the characters Peacemaker and Bloodsport. I just love how they trying to one up each other. It just really it works really well. Um, what else? I mean, we got Harley Quinn. I mean, to be expected. I don't think there was anything here that was too that like made me like fall in love with her portrayal again. She's just so
Right.
good at it.
Yeah,
I think
she's just mastered it. She's just, like she really. And the thing that I think we need to mention, and maybe we don't need to like belabor the point, but like um her rendition of Harley Quinn that she introduced in the first version of Suicide Squad is so enduring that it's basically the de facto version of the character now at this point. Um, she put a stamp on the character in ways that like doesn't happen very often, right? The version of Harley Quinn it's basically a delineated line. It's before Margot Robbie and after, and that like that's it basically. Um, and her version as Harley Quinn here is like, yeah, basically she's really not even in the movie that much, to be honest. Actually, her one of my biggest gripes of the movie is that her plot feels very perfunctory. Like it doesn't really do much. She's just kind of there the whole time, which is I think a little unfortunate, but it's still pretty good. I think for me, the one standout for me is Daniela Melchior, who plays Ratcatcher 2.
Yeah.
She is the heart of the movie, like 100%. Like it's not even close. And her performance is great. Like she's basically an unknown actress. She is Portuguese. She plays a Portuguese character, and a character that I don't think many people really either know or care about. But
well, that's kind of the point
makes you care about her.
of the characters here. They're all just a bunch of low-level misfits, and at some point we'll have some sort of redeemable quality or will serve a purpose, which is also the message with Ratcatcher, specifically Ratcatcher 1 in the flashback with her dad, played by Taika.
Yeah,
kind of gives that message towards the end, right? Like talks about how Ratchet the lowest level, but
right,
can still serve a purpose, and it's kind of just like
which is like he's basically stating the theme of the movie.
Yeah.
I would be fair. I think I remember them saying that he was cast in the movie, Taika, but I didn't remember that while watching it, and I was like, and then it cuts to this, I think, a little clunky flashback, like this, like and and it's them sitting on this like roof, and I guess in Portugal, and it's like
they do one before, like a mini one.
Yeah,
but
it's handled much better, I think.
But the first one, I don't even think you noticed that it was Taika. I don't even think he spoke. Or maybe
no, because it's all happening in like they're sitting in that bus.
Oh yeah.
And it's like happening in the window.
The effects of that play out, like you see her in the middle of the screen, like throughout, so you can see her like real time reaction or current reaction, plus just like what she's talking about around her.
Yeah, and it's kind of a like the best probably example of how the movie doesn't really use title cards or it does, but it's all supposed to like in world, like it'll like wash up branches onto the beach, and it'll be like 8 hours before or whatever. It'll tell us that information, but they'll try to fit it into the world, and kind of
I guess they needed to do that since like we do change time quite a bit or places or whatever. But I don't know. I didn't think it was like clever or like cool or anything, to be honest. I think the first time it's used, well, just like the in world like whatever. I think the first time it's used when Savant dies, which is pretty cool because it's like kind of gives a break in terms of what we just saw, which was pretty crazy. Like, basically the whole team that we were just introduced to is, they're all dead. So that is pretty cool. But I remember when it came up in the water, so like Warner Brothers Presents, like it was kind of like it didn't solicit like a reaction from our audience, at least.
No, I don't like. Is it supposed to? Like the thing that's weird for me is that it's like I would almost prefer the stuff to just be on the screen, like as normal, as like just text on the screen, because like
fit it in.
Instead of like, because if you try to fit it in, now I'm like thinking like, wait, is that actually in the world? Like, are they seeing that? Like, it doesn't make it like it. It obviously makes no sense. They're not. But it's like it like somehow is more distracting for me than if it was just text on the screen, Right. But I think it's just something fun to do. So I don't really like. It's like the smallest of nitpicks. But I would say that just generally speaking, that you're right about the time jump stuff. That I think it's like it doesn't. I feel like, why do we do it? Like it doesn't really add to the movie. It doesn't really provide these big reveals.
Well, I think it's because you have so many characters and they're kind of split up and like, doing their own thing here and there and coupled with this person. So I guess when like the meetup happens, which is when real stuff starts to happen, or someone can show up and save someone or vice versa or whatever. then you just get these kind of shocking moments. We're all caught up. You've seen both, trajectories leading up to this point, and then we go from here.
Yeah, like because I was fine with the first one. Let me put it this way: like the
Yeah.
opening scene, getting
that
to
one's
like do
awesome.
that's
Yeah.
cool, right? Because then you spend like you get to like rewind time and get
Yeah. After everyone's dead,
yeah
but
the
you know
joy
from the trailers and just rethinking that, hey, there are other members, we haven't even seen them yet.
exactly, right? Because you're like, wait, is the whole movie
Yeah.
is this the end of the movie? Like I don't understand like what they're doing there, but I love that first bit. But then they do it again later in the movie, and I'm like, this doesn't. I feel like doesn't improve this. Like it didn't increase the quality of the second like the big set piece action scene, which is where the second time it happens.
So who do we
Because
catch up with through the second time, or like what is it?
well,
What
so
is
there,
it?
we're spending time with Peacemaker
Okay, I was gonna say.
and what's his name, the most dull wet cardboard character in the entire movie.
I
Joel
heard a lot of people
Kinnaman's.
giving him props and how his character has changed so much, and he's really come into his own, and he's funny, and I'm just like, what are we
Like,
talking about
what
here?
movie did you watch?
Yeah,
I mean, I think for
Rick
Joel
Flag.
Kinnaman, he played this like he was super serious Rick Flag in the first movie, right? So in this movie, he gets to be a little bit more fun, and he is more fun in this movie, certainly an improvement over the first, definitely, but still is just like, man, I don't know if it's just and honestly, I don't. I just don't think Joel Kinnaman is a very good actor. Like I think that's what it is. Like
he was pretty like hot for a while, like when he
he
did.
had a little he had a little bit of his own renaissance.
Yeah,
Um,
like when he did what was it? The Killing, which is a TV show,
yeah,
and then he did RoboCop, I think, but that was
yes,
kind of a
that
bomb.
movie's bad.
Yeah.
Movie's so bad.
But then I
Isn't
remember them even like for Spider-Man for Craven. I remember them saying that they want a Joel Kinnaman type of
to play
actor.
Craven.
Yeah, I don't know if you
Interesting.
remember that.
No, I
But
don't.
it's
That's
like,
a bad
but it's
choice.
like he kind of just got like props there, like without his
Like there's
involvement.
literally,
I
I'm
remember.
looking at the IMDb here. I'm like, I would rather have Jai Courtney as like if you're gonna for any role that you want Joel Kinnaman in, just put Jai Courtney in instead.
But
Like,
he's Boomerang, isn't he?
yeah, he is Captain Boomerang. Yes,
Yeah.
correct. And Captain Boomerang, by the way, who is a character I think that we generally liked from the first one.
For sure.
And
And
has
we're
a
fan
couple good.
of the actor himself, from
Yeah.
Spartacus fame. Of course.
Absolutely. But unfortunate for Jai Courtney, I've not had the most illustrious career since Spartacus, unfortunately.
And I'll take this time to point out that I believe 3 actors from Spartacus have played Captain Boomerang in some way or another.
Well, it's because
Whether
was it made in
whether it be on
Australia?
whether it be on the Flash TV show, Arrow, and the Suicide Squad. I
Right.
believe 3 actors from that show have played Captain Boomerang, which is
What a
pretty
fun
weird.
little like clique that they have, like a little like club that they that they have, that they can like come to like a convention together and do like.
But
Remember when we did Spartacus?
Jai Courtney owns, when he talks to Harley, he has to call her Harls,
Right.
right?
Yep. Yes, that's right. And it's I can't even do an impression of it because it's like I'll feel like I'll just completely butcher it. It's like
Probably.
Harls.
You have to work on it.
Yeah, I will. And like again, speaking of just like great performances, Viola Davis is in this movie. And
I mean, she is Amanda Waller. Like she was
Yes.
amazing in the first standout of the first movie, right? Like
Yes.
some pretty crazy scenes, and they showcase how dangerous and how her character is, and I think this movie just really does a good job of showcasing that again. And yeah, she turns out a great performance.
So I think here's the thing. I agree with everything you just said. She's super scary, but do you think they take it a smidge too far in this one, with like the murdering of like the implied murder of children and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, for me, that's another turnoff from this type of comedic take or whatever, right? Like, it's just a lot of over the top jokes that like it's always like at the expense of like, oh, he murdered a bunch of children or whatever, and like
Right.
it's just, or the dick jokes on the island. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it's a lot of like really immature humor that I just don't really care for.
Sure.
But too far. I mean, in the first movie, I'm pretty sure she like kills all these FBI agents. Like they show her like actually shooting like 6 of them.
Yeah, but I don't care about her shooting FBI agents. It's this implied like, oh yeah, I'll send your kid to jail
Yeah,
And
but that's Amanda
also,
Waller. She's
right,
not she's not necessarily a good guy. You know what I mean? Like she is, but she'll do whatever means necessary
she's
type thing. So she's like an
much
anti-hero, I guess.
closer to what the heck is his name?
Sinestro,
No, 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 no,
Raffaello.
no, 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 no. Even in this movie, why am I forgetting? Hold on, I'm looking. Why am I forgetting? Is crap. Why has my brain stopped working at this exact
Well,
moment?
maybe I'll remember. But either way, like
Yeah.
I think you need to with that character and just the premise. Like, why would these people agree or like be forced to do it? Like, you have to have this crazy character at the top of it, and
Mm-hmm.
and I think it works with her specifically with her and Bloodsport, right? Like that whole setup is pretty good, especially after we meet Bloodsport's daughter. Brief scene in prison, but it really encompasses what that's all
Great
about. And
scene.
there's tons of humor, throughout it, even though it's a very serious thing.
It's a honestly like brilliant script and like
And
execution in that
performances. I
scene.
think the two
Yeah.
actors involved, like you just immediately start to care for them, even though they both made mistakes or they're both kind of rude or
Yeah.
whatever.
100%. Yeah, like it's very funny, it's very real and raw, and it's like okay, yeah,
And they have a reasonable answer for everything too.
yeah,
Like you understand.
yeah.
Okay, you understand why we're at this point.
So okay, so I remember what I was gonna say. So it's that her version of Amanda Waller is much more basically just a female version of Peacemaker, which is like, you
Hmm.
know, ends justify the means, and there is no bridge too far. Like anything, as long as it's protecting the greater United States or world, it's worth it,
Hmm.
regardless of what the cost is. And it's like they play John Cena to be, as this, as Peacemaker. I think he's really good. And having just seen him in Fast and Furious, where he's not very good, I think this is just much more his cup of tea. He's very funny. Like he's like I think low key one of the funniest actors out there right now because he's willing to make fun of himself, and I think that's awesome. And so he's a full on villain at the end of this movie. Later on, they basically just like, man, he sucks. He murders Rick Flag, and even though you're like, I don't really like John Cena's, I don't like Peacemaker for doing that. I don't really care that much because it's just Rick Flag, and I don't care that much about that character either. Either way, it's like, sure, she gets hit in the head and has to deal with the fallout, but like, I guess they're a match made in heaven for their show that's coming because they're really the same in a lot of ways. I don't know if you noticed that or thought that, but I think it it certainly adds to the nuance of the movie, but I don't necessarily think for the better. It just kind of makes it all morally gray, which is fine, I suppose. The really, like I said, because the heart of the movie is Ratcatcher 2, and she could care less about anything that any of those characters are doing. So I've come full circle on it. I'm actually fine. I'm actually fine with it. I've convinced myself.
You're fine with what exactly?
I'm fine with Amanda Waller's kind of
Okay.
brutalness in the movie.
Yeah, because she's always going to be like brutal, like you say, but she's setting everything up, and then what always will happen is that the heroes will prevail. They'll change the course of whatever, but
Right.
at the end of the day, we always need Amanda Waller. You know,
To push them in
technically,
the right direction. Yeah.
yeah, and to
Yeah.
yeah, and it ends up hopefully working out.
Yeah. Okay. I agree. I've come around. I take it back. Nitpick has been updated. No longer a nitpick. Um,
What did you
I.
think of the use of the speaking of Rick Flag and Peacemaker, their
Mm-hmm,
final fight there?
mm-hmm.
What did you think when they just filmed a certain part of the fight sequence that was a reflection off of Peacemaker's helmet?
I thought that was the coolest part of the movie.
What? Are you
You didn't
being
like that? I
sarcastic?
thought that was cool. I
I
thought
was
that like
like, no, I was like, what are we doing right now?
no. Okay, so
What,
Jeremy,
like, why?
it's because it's just stylish filmmaking is really what it is. That's all it is. I just thought it was a
Yeah,
cool
but
shot. It's not the
it's
coolest part
not.
of the movie, but it's just
Yeah, it's
I'm
definitely the coolest part
exaggerating.
of the movie. I don't
Obviously,
know.
the Starro is the coolest part of the movie, but
Yeah.
the I thought it was just like a fun, stylish thing to do because it's only like I don't know 5-6 seconds of that shot before it
Yeah.
cuts to them actually fighting. I thought it was cool. What you just thought it was distracting, or what was your issue with
I
that?
just didn't really see how it was necessary or why we're showcasing it off of the helmet. Like we're supposed to think of, maybe because the helmet's off. I don't like it. Just I struggle to find any sort of meaning. But if it's just slick, then it's, to me, it's a little over the top and just kind of
Like, there's no point.
nothing new. Like
Yeah.
it does, it's, you know, almost seems obvious to do that or something. I don't know. I just, maybe we'll find out, like, or people have other thoughts
I
on
think
it.
you might be in the minority of this one, Jeremy.
Yeah.
I thought, I mean, sure, it is just style for the sake of style, but I mean, James Gunn is kind of, he kind of does that every once in a while, you know. And so I thought it was cool. I remember thinking in the movie, like, well, I don't know if I said it out loud. I was like, cool. I remember thinking that while I was watching that exact moment. So it's so funny you bring that up. Do you have a standout, like, do you have a favorite scene from this movie? Because my favorite scene is probably the favorite scene that everyone else has. It's probably not that original.
I don't know. I mean, the more like we were talking earlier, like I wasn't as hype on the movie initially coming out. It might have been due to the humor, maybe. I mean, obviously we know it's an action comedy essentially, but
Right.
it just didn't land for me. But I think just the third act, I guess. I think just the battle with Starro. I think, to me, it kind of came out of nowhere, but like I just loved how it was set up and just how every character kind of had time to do whatever they needed to do to be a part of defeating Starro.
Sure. Yeah. Totally.
And I thought that really worked really well, especially with Idris Elba just kind of in the middle of it all, and I guess becoming a leader, so to speak, as they were talking about. And I think that's the only time I liked like the words on the screen or whatever. Like it wasn't in the same way as the other ones where it was like disguised within the movie. It was just Guy Ritchie, boom, boom, boom. Like
right. It was like Starro versus the Suicide Squad, which is
like that was just brilliant. I'm like, yes, more of this, please.
Yeah,
and then it's just a triple-A quality Starro versus Suicide Squad. It's just
100%.
Simple as that.
100%.
And like you could edit it down and make it quicker to where we don't have to, like, if you wanted just like a video of a battle with Starro, like you have that in there as well. But then he's got to pace it to where every character is learning something or figuring something out, or so I just thought it was great.
I think what's great about that final sequence too is that like everything pays off. Like the javelin from Javelin even pays off. Like she's carrying it around the whole movie, and like obviously that like it's gonna be like it's Chekhov's javelin, like it has to be used. But I like that that's happening there. It's that culminative moment where you mentioned Jeremy with Idris Elba, and he's like Bloodsport kind of finally understanding his role in the whole thing. Like everything really comes to a head. Even Idris Elba, even his like fear of rats comes to a head at that moment. So it's like it all kind of works.
It's beautiful, just the way like that, like with Ratcatcher too, just kind of finish like the final blow. Using that power, and then he has them all kind of crawling over him, which I think I saw someone on Twitter kind of referring to it as a sort of baptism. Getting over that fear and just him opening up more and just feeling compassion or whatever, because that's kind of what his character lacked before. Even though I think it was always there, because he's just such a charming actor and the character itself. Especially specifically with the scene with his daughter, like you could just see a lot of emotions throughout. Even though they were fighting, there was still like a lot of cute stuff and love stuff, even though they're not technically close. But it all makes his journey believable. To the point where he's petting the rat. At the very end, which is also a callback to Guardians when Drax pets Rocket.
Groot. Oh yeah, Rocket. Yeah. I mean, I think there's certainly we can talk about that in a second. I would say one gripe I have with Idris Elba's character is that it's too similar to Will Smith's character. Like they're. And of course, he was
like writing it down wise, but I don't think.
Well, no. From a performance standpoint, no. I would say they're completely different. But from
that's to be expected, because we knew from the get go that it was supposed to be him, but it wasn't because of scheduling conflict.
Yeah, like they were. Well, at first they're like, okay, we'll cast Idris Elba to replace Will Smith as Deadshot, right?
Yeah. There's also a run of Deathstroke potentially being.
Idris Elba
or something.
That would here's the thing. I love Idris Elba. I don't understand why he's not like a global superstar, like AAA gold, like carries a movie type superstar. Like I think he's that good. He just doesn't, for some reason, doesn't get the props, doesn't get the right roles. I don't know what it is. He did just get cast as Knuckles in the Sonic 2 and like the Sonic movie sequel, which automatically makes it a must watch for me. But you keep coming back to like, man, Idris Elba is so good in this movie, and it's just like, to me, it's not necessarily a surprise. Like I just love watching him work. He is just so like you just want to hang out with this guy. He just seems like the nicest dude, even though he's playing quote unquote a bad guy here.
Extremely likable bad guy. Like there's just
100%.
there's no qualities that really make him unlikable, except for the notion of his family and his daughter, and just kind of
and also like,
but even then he explains it good enough, I guess, in the beginning.
Well, yeah, his whole I don't get paid to kill people. It's like, are we really supposed to be like, we've seen enough movies with the assassin as being the lead character that like I don't think that's really a stretch. And like his abilities too, like being able to pull stuff off his suit and to like turn them into guns is so cool, like it just, and I think they said that Bloodsport, although not a completely full whole cloth new character, like that character did exist in the comics in some way, is just very different than what they use for Idris Elba here, and I think that's cool. So like they basically just like reworked a character and made them way more badass. And I am 100% behind if they want to like use Idris Elba to like do some more connections into more larger parts of the DCEU. 100% bring him into more stuff.
Yeah, I mean he was asked about the whole Superman thing, right? Because they set it up where he put Superman in the ICU or whatever.
Yeah.
Bullet. But like there's people wanting like, oh, let's see that happen or that play out or
right.
whatever.
Yeah, I think that was at like the same time that they're asking like, which Superman was it, right? And it's like, who knows? But I think I would love to see that. Obviously, like a flashback. Like we've seen Superman get shot with a kryptonite bullet before, so not necessarily new, but still cool. Like the concept of it is inherently cool, right?
Yeah.
So definitely want to. I would, just more Bloodsport, please, and more Ratcatcher too, like that stuff. And obviously more Amanda Waller. All that stuff is great. Like, sure, a bunch of these characters that we saw here, most of them die, right? Even though I like Nathan Fillion, his character.
Well, at the end, it
silly.
actually says that he's in some sort of condition. Like, it doesn't say dead.
Oh, he's not dead? I thought for sure he was dead.
Well, they have that funny scene, right? When they're getting shut up. It's like his arms are getting shut up, and it shows his body like reacting.
Right.
To like how he would feel if his arms were getting all battered up or whatever.
Right.
So he still feels that and could be bleeding from it, but he's not necessarily dead because all of his main organs and brain should all be fine.
Right. And then like obviously Michael Rooker, a Savant. You've got
that's I mean that's pretty cool too, right? Because he's in the beginning. He's like our intro into everything, and then he deserts, and then that's when you get the classic Amanda Waller.
You need to show it
triggering the explosion, which and that was when we saw the Warner Brothers Presents.
Yeah,
so I thought that was pretty cool.
And really, like again, Jai Courtney doesn't make it out of this either. But ultimately, I think with this kind of more broader acceptance of the multiverse, is like you could really just bring these characters back at any time. And
for
like,
sure.
Yeah, if you like, we need a story with Captain Boomerang. Jai Courtney's back. Like it doesn't matter. And because I remember being like annoyed because they kill spoilers for Birds of Prey. But Black Mask does not make it out of the end of that movie, and I'm like, man, that sucks because his performance is so good. I want more of Ewan McGregor's Black Mask. So like, at this point, basically, I don't think there is any rules. You can bring any of these people back at any time, and it's fine. What else did I want to touch on here? I guess like the setting. I would say like, so this movie takes place primarily in Corto Maltese, which is a fictional island. It's kind of like the islands from Jurassic Park. They don't exist either. Or as they call it in the movie, Corto Maltese. And actually, which is cool, the one kind of like fun Easter egg that I heard about this location is that it actually has a history in DC movies in the past where it actually appears in the Batman '89 on a newspaper. And I think that's kind of cool. Like, it's been around for a very long time. We have never really, like, we've definitely gone there in the animated stuff. We've seen it in the comic books, but this idea of like this basically version, it's basically Cuba, right? That's the kind of the idea here. But without having to be Cuba, you can basically do whatever you want. So this island nation, Spanish-speaking island nation off of the coast of Central America is, I think, a cool location. It's filmed in Panama. I think the movie is well served by being on location for the filming of it. It feels like it's in an actual place. I really like the design of some of the kind of the set, like, locations for the set pieces. That what the heck is it called? Jeremy, what's the name of that big building at the end with Starro in it? What's the name of it? You remember?
They say it so many times, don't they?
They do, and I still don't remember what it's called. It's got it's a Norse mythology name, and I just think, like, so. And the other thing that's
like
cool
Jotunheim
about that,
or something.
yes, I think you're right, Jotunheim. And the thing that's cool about that is
it's not actually Jotunheim, though. I don't think.
Isn't it? I thought it is. Maybe I'm misremembering.
Isn't that actually a Norse thing, though?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess because the idea was that it was invented, like, it was the Nazis had built it, I guess, is the kind of the backstory on that. And it actually ties into the comics because it's the first place that that the Suicide Squad in the comic books goes to. It's a little bit different in the comics. But it's the idea is that it's like the first mission that John Ostrander's version of Suicide Squad goes to this place called Jotunheim, when it's just like a base on, like, hanging on the underside of a mountain. It's kind of cool. I saw a picture of it. Just generally speaking, I think the kind of nods to the comics are so subtle that if you weren't looking for them or you didn't know about them, you probably wouldn't catch them. But that's the best type of nod to the comics. Like, if it's beating you over the head with it, it's like it feels so forced. It's what Daniel hates the most.
Yeah, I mean, even in here, like like Amanda Waller has like a quick line about how Rick Flag knew Bloodsport or something from a mission or something way back when, and like that's
former military. They worked together. Yeah. I thought that was I like, it's kind of throwaway that they have like a history, but it's kind of cool. Like, oh yeah, they're both ex-military, so it makes sense. So yeah, my favorite scene is, like I said, it's probably most people's favorite scene, is when they're going, like, that kind of like one up each other as they walk through that camp and take out those those freedom fighters. It's just so funny. All the deaths are like inventive and fun, right? And it's got this kind of like this one-upsmanship aspect to it, and that obviously that great line of like, no one likes to show off unless what they're showing off is dope AF, So like that's that line itself will endure, I think, longer than this movie's history will, is my thinking on that. And it's just so fun, and like, of course, it's like you feel about halfway through like something's not right, but and it the problem with it, I guess, the biggest issue with that scene, although regardless of how much fun it is, I think for me, is that when they get to the end and they're like, oh yeah, we killed all your friends, it's like it's just glossed over so quickly. Like this freedom fighter lady just like, yeah, that's fine. And it's like, I don't think she'd be fine.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not really realistic, but
yeah. But it's also like, what are you supposed to do? You can't have your cake and eat it too with that, really. You just kind of have to, you just got to roll with it. What's interesting here is that, like, I'm much more willing to forgive some of its like narrative weirdness in service of like just these really tight character moments, right? Because ultimately, and I've been coming around on this like more and more and more, like, action scenes are fine, but to me it's like, give me a dialogue scene, between Bloodsport and Rick Flag. That's where the real meat of the stuff is, right? And so as long as we're able to get these strong character moments or plot elements that serve character, right, and not plot, I guess, I'm much more forgiving of things like that. In where movies that try to like that make you think, are much more self-serious, which is a term that Daniel normally hates, but luckily he's not here to annoy me about it. that I'm just not willing to forgive those things. It's like, well, if you want to take yourself seriously, then you need to take everything seriously. You know, like that's like you don't get to pick and choose where something is realistic and true, and then other times where it's like, oh, well, it's a comic book movie. You know, you kind of have to kind of commit one or the other. And this is kind of like, no, we'll go silly. I mean, there's that whole scene with Harley Quinn, and like we're seeing it from her perspective, and there's all the flowers instead of blood and all this kind of stuff, and it's like, although I think maybe a little longer than it needs to be, is still pretty fun. The craziest part of that, though, Jeremy, is that apparently when she like grabs the key and like flips upside down to like unlock herself, she did that for real, like on set, and it like blew James Gunn's mind. He was like, "Excuse, like what? Like how did you? How are you?
I think I could do that.
You think you could do that?
Well, I mean, it's not like she was actually locked up, hanging, and then
Sure.
went out there and did it. She was set up so where she could be filmed to where her feet grab the key, and then she lifts her legs up to the lock and just kind of puts it in there.
Right.
Definitely a difficult thing. I'm not saying every single human could do that,
Right.
but I can see it being like not a problem for some people.
Let me put it this way,
Especially if
Jeremy.
you're athletic.
I can't touch my toes. Okay.
Okay.
So
Well, I said specifically if you're athletic, so I guess you're not athletic.
well, I get, yeah, ipso facto. Yeah, I don't know. Anywho, anything else that stands out for you in this movie? Like, what did you make of this like rendition, this version of Starro? I think it was like pretty spot on.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I mean, he made the villain, a little empathetic, I guess, towards the end when it died.
Sure.
I think it's just really cool finally seeing Starro and the powers and just the little Starros that go on people's faces. Like that's just such an iconic thing from
Visual,
the comics
yeah.
and visual. Yeah, just to see that finally play out and see what it looks like. And I just love the use of the giant eyeball. On the little ones and obviously Starro. It's just a really cool look.
Yeah, it kind of it harkens to like obviously it's a strange connection, but Alita Battle Angel. In that movie, like the big gimmick is that like the main character has these like CG eyeballs that are huge, right? Like huge eyes. But they do so much work for the movie where like you stop really. I think it's credit to that movie's CG, which I think is also great in Suicide Squad. You forget that you're looking at a CG face, and because the eyes do so much work, they take up so much of the face, and because eyes tell so much emotion, you're able to like really get a lot of work out of that. And Starro, which is basically just one giant eyeball, is able to get a lot of mileage out of just expressing emotions through the eyeball. Totally agree with you. And by the way, I think Starro looks great. I think it's like a really convincing
I think it's the best
design.
looking CG. I think that's for for a reason. Like it's got to look good.
Yeah.
First appearance, and it's gigantic.
Which is so sweet. Like,
yeah.
And there's this like what I loved at the time was like, if Superman was here, it's like this is kind of like a non-issue. Like. Right. It's just like just a big punch and you knock it over or you throw it into space or whatever, right? But like instead you've got these non-super powered characters and they have to figure out a way to deal with it. I just think that's just so much more interesting of a fight, right? Like of course, it's a classic Justice League villain, but when you're just going up against Suicide Squad, the dynamic is just so much more compelling because you're like, what is fucking Polka Dot Man gonna do? And by the way, Polka Dot Man, who we haven't mentioned yet, I think is way
to me,
cooler
the
than I thought.
Part of the movie.
Yeah,
his character. Yeah, for me at least.
You think he's the funniest? I don't know if he's the funniest part, but he's certainly like.
Well, I mean, there's
great.
So much attached to it too, right? Because it's like his whole reveal of the mother thing, which is a running joke throughout the whole movie, and is like a huge thing at the end, right?
Yes.
The mother is Starro.
It's too good.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think his delivery is just so funny to me, and just it's such a silly looking and power character, but the power comes off as pretty cool, right? It comes off as pretty useful.
Yeah,
it even has that one moment where it backfires or whatever.
Yeah, it blows up the C4 or whatever. Yeah,
which is another funny moment when they have the whole Milton thing, which is kind of like a random joke or whatever, random character. But
yeah,
those are always funny.
Well, no, it's funny. What's even funnier is that it comes back later because Harley Quinn thought that Bloodsport was Milton.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I was like, okay, because I thought that joke had already run its course, and then I was like, okay, you know what? That's actually like now it's like now it's finally done, and I think it's way better now because of that extra little slice from Harley. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think it's all good. If this didn't convince you, you should go see it. It's really great. And we haven't even talked about King Shark, another character that I think has had a little bit of like a resurgence. He's appeared in, I guess his first kind of big resurgence. He appeared in the Flash TV show in like season 2, and then which was like years and years ago, and then was in the Harley Quinn animated show. And in Harley Quinn, the character's way different than the King Shark we get here, but still great. And there's just you can get a lot of mileage out of a shark who wants to eat people, who can talk. Like you just like it has like jokes write themselves constantly, and then again is also in pretty sure that the trailer for the Suicide Squad video game, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
So like he's just like constantly popping up, which is a character that was really silly, right? Like I think it's just one of those examples of like, well, we'll just take the silliest characters and we'll just make them into like Polka Dot Man. We'll make them interesting, and I think they make him interesting here. Like this idea that he's like a he's like a supernatural being from like a race of shark people that's like long forgotten, super powerful, right? Because you get to see him like, and they test all this stuff. They show you instead of tell you, right? He's probably the strongest on your team. It's that they tell you that after you'd already seen Bloodsport like take his shotgun to him like 4 or 5 times, right? And like to like very little effect. I just think, and also obviously that shot of him ripping that guy in half in slow motion is pretty cool.
Great, yeah.
Like, it's pretty dope. So anyway, like I said, this movie is just, I think, top to bottom a great time. It certainly has a couple gripes. We have, I would have a couple gripes with it. We haven't really got into too many of them. There's that like whole like political motivations of that Spanish guy who's like taken over the government, who's with Harley. Like, who cares about that guy? Doesn't even need to be here.
Yeah, it's probably the worst part of the movie, in my opinion.
There's a whole scene of them burning, like hanging out with birds and then burning the birds, and it's like there's a lot of symbolism there.
It's a big like payoff for Harley, right? Like in comparison to her past relationship with the Joker, and like
right.
Because it's all about the red flag thing, and then when there's a red flag, she just kills him or whatever.
Yeah.
But then has a whole diatribe of like while he's dying. So I get it. I just thought it was like, it's like, what are we doing here? But then, okay, that's what we're doing here. We're doing nothing here. It's just we're killing this guy.
It's right. It's just it's all to serve character.
Yeah.
I guess for me, it's less effective because like I've seen a lot of that kind of character growth already in Birds of Prey, right? And I was like, yeah, I'm like, this is just the version of Harley we get is a mature, more emotionally mature version than we've gotten any previous versions, right? And say what you will, whether or not you like that or not. It's I would say it's less interesting probably than like a off the wall wacko. Like she is crazy obviously, but like she's only crazy in a way that like serves a net positive. It's like she really is just a hero who's nuts and kills people. Like she's basically just a Punisher character who's a little bit more insane. So whether you like that or not from your Harley, that's kind of the version that we're getting from now on. I know people are calling like, hey, let's just give us a Harley Quinn Poison Ivy movie. And by the way, totally would be behind that. Like if you want to just make a fun kind of a riff on that version of the Batman the Animated Series where they're just hanging out and bring Catwoman in there, I think that would be sweet. And I think Birds of Prey was kind of supposed to be that, but it gets a little muddied with some of the additional characters in that movie that I don't think get enough time to really care about them. So like the Bertelli or Bertarelli, what's her name, the one with the crossbow.
Sure.
Anywho, any final thoughts?
No, I mean, I guess we have to look forward to the Peacemaker series.
Are you gonna watch that?
We know that what's his name is still alive, so that's exciting.
Oh, TDK?
No.
Oh, Wait, John Cena's character?
No.
What are you talking? Oh, who are we talking about?
What do
Who's
you mean?
alive?
There's
What are you
one that died in the beginning of the mission. The
Oh,
character
right.
grandma.
Weasel?
Yeah.
Played by Sean Gunn.
Yeah. Who
Yeah, we
also
got.
played Calendar Man.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah. And by the way, he gets one line, but it's pretty funny. So okay, fair enough. Again, another character that's getting like way more attention recently than you would expect. I guess it's just those obscure weirdo characters that like people love. Like, I love Calendar Man. I'm gonna bring him into my movie. I'm gonna put him in for one scene. But like would never get enough credit to be in an actual Batman movie. Like, we don't have enough time. Although, who knows? Like, he might, for all we know, he'll appear in The Batman. So is that the next DC movie that we have to look forward to now at this point?
The Batman?
Yeah.
I think so.
And we don't really know much about anything else on the calendar. Really?
No, I guess not.
Right?
They're filming The Flash right now.
Yeah.
And Shazam too. They're filming, and Black Adam, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, and so I guess we'll get the Batman next year, at some time next year, and then we'll just kind of, I think, I don't know what's coming next. I mean, it might be the Flash, and then it might be Black Adam. It might be the other way around. It's hard to say, but I guess after that, it's kind of like an open book. Where do you feel, Jeremy? What's your thoughts on where the DCEU stands at this point? Having now seen this movie.
I mean, this is like just a crazy question that it just pops up every now and then. We'll never get the answer to. I think we're still waiting. We're still waiting. I think The Flash is like that marquee movie that kind of will give us answers on where we're going, because that's the multiverse movie. That's like the Doctor Strange,
Sure.
you know,
Multiverse of Madness,
where we're getting everybody, right? It's like the meme, yeah, like, your Aunt and Uncle in this movie, like it's like everyone's in it. So I think we got to see that movie and how that plays out, where that ends, and we'll go from there. Like right now, I don't.
Yeah, it's hard
I
to
couldn't
say.
Predict.
It's just it's in flux. I would say that I've generally liked the movies that have been made. Like I mostly like them. With a few exceptions. There's good moments in Wonder Woman 1984, but it's mostly a bad movie. I like this movie. I mostly like Birds of Prey. It like I said, like the door is open. I think what Aquaman 2 is, and what these kind of next installments into some of the characters we may already know, like the Flash, I think you're right, are going to really kind of set the tone, right? Is this kind of like action comedy, really riff on the Marvel take? So, there's definite Guardians of the Galaxy vibes to this movie, right? It's ensemble cast, it's funny, and the fun and the humor's baked into the action, so it's really kind of, it has that template. But what makes this movie different than Guardians of the Galaxy is that it's this raunchy R-rated version. Now, I don't think the DCEU can survive on being all R-rated. I don't think it can. You just don't get enough butts and seats with R-rated movies. So you have to tone it down.
Joker.
Well, I suppose, but that's also not a DCEU movie technically, in a sense.
Well, what do you mean? Extended universe is all of them.
Well, I suppose
they want to make a sequel to the Joker.
Well, that doesn't that literally doesn't make any sense. Like I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get into that. That movie's good, but it doesn't need a sequel. Like I think the worst thing you could do is make a sequel to that movie. I don't know. Whatever. I think that you need to commit to like what the DCEU is going to be, and if it's really much more like this Marvel formula, which is action comedy, that's fine. You just need to commit to that, and then you can obviously have offshoots and different spins on that formula, and kind of fringe movies. The Suicide Squad, I think, at the end of the day, is going to be a fringe movie, right? Because it is rated R. It's got this raunchiness to it that the rest of the movies aren't going to have. And you can do that on the other fringe too, right? You can get a little bit darker on the more self-serious side as well if you want to. But you need to pick a lane. And it seems like this is the lane that they've picked, this action comedy, which again, maybe a little disappointing because it's like more of the same, but it does make for fun movies. You know what I mean? Like, and ultimately, I think I've come around on this a little bit. It's like with comic book movies, I think they should be fun first, and I think that's okay. You know, I don't know. We just won't know yet until more movies come out. But it's the trajectory we get. We're kind of putting the dots together now. It looks like that's where we're going.
Yeah, I think we knew that's what they've been wanting to do for a while. It's just been a very rough go at it because they didn't commit to that. They tried to,
change things midway.
They had.
Yeah,
and it's just kind of, it's just a weird thing that they're still processing, and yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. And like, by the way, this movie, The Suicide Squad, is getting review bombed a little bit. I think that's unfortunate. And I would say don't do that. That would be my one note there. Okay, so we can wrap it up there. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at TowerBabbleCast, Facebook.com/TowerBabbleCast. And if you want to help support the show, head over to Patreon.com/TowerBabbleCast. And for as little as $5 a month, you'll get access to our monthly film club. Now, the film club film for this month is Face Off. So be prepared for that.
Please be excited.
You still have about 20. Yeah, get it. Please be excited. We have about 20 days for you to like amp yourself up for that. We'll try to record it near the end of the month. And this is a movie I have not seen, but I have heard is great. So my expectations are quite high, Jeremy. That's really all it is at this point. And it feels like the right time because I don't know if you've been seeing the buzz around Pig. Jeremy, have you been seeing any of this stuff?
No.
So apparently it is. Let's see if I pull it up here. It's apparently Nicolas Cage's best reviewed movie ever. Like it's just like next level great movie, and so it just feels like the right time. He's having his own little resurrection, I guess, after many years being considered one of the well. So what I heard was that he had like bought himself an island and was like living very, very large, and then that he had to keep working to pay for that stuff, and he kept having to, because he was had to keep working, he kept having to take worse and worse roles, just whatever was available, and that's what ultimately led to kind of like the version of the mid to late 2000s Nicolas Cage that I think is synonymous with crappy movies, right? Like what's that one where he like could see 5 minutes into the future or whatever? So like stuff like that, and it's unfortunate because I think he is a fine actor. I think he's maybe not the best, but he's fine, and I'm glad to see that he's kind of landed on his feet with Pig. So if you have an opportunity, check it out. Love to hear people's thoughts on it, and yeah, we'll be watching a Nicolas Cage classic, Face Off, for our film club this month. So again, head over to patreon.com/TowerBabbleCast to find that at the end of this month. Our movie from last month, Driven. Speaking of Sylvester Stallone, we didn't love that movie, but if you want to hear us rip it apart, you can subscribe now and get that immediately and enjoy that for what it is. And if you want to stay on that same vein, you can also go further back and listen to our review of Days of Thunder, which we certainly did love, and is now at the top of my list of favorite movies. I love it. So
favorite movie of all time.
Well, I don't know if it's my favorite movie, but it's like I think it's probably top 10. It's like very good. Anyway, so that's the Patreon. Yeah, I appreciate it, Jeremy. That was a Jeremy pick. He'll never let us forget it. All right. Well, we will.
I'll have to redeem myself from Driven though next time.
Well, that's okay, Jeremy. Not everything can be as good as Days of Thunder. So one thing I wanted to mention, we saw a couple trailers while we were in the theater for Suicide Squad.
I know
we saw a trailer for Dune, and obviously that looked very cool. But I think we can all agree that the coolest thing we saw was the trailer for Top Gun 2 Maverick, because that movie looks so badass. I don't understand how people aren't like clamoring to see this movie in theaters. Like Well, that, and by the way, also the James Bond No Time to Die, which a movie that I hear needs to make something like $900 million, like $900 million to break even or something like that.
Doesn't
Like,
matter anymore because
yeah.
MGM like was bought out or something, right? By Amazon.
Well, yeah, it does and it doesn't. Like, I think they have, like, it still needs to make money back to some degree. And it's like, they were like, okay, they were one of the first movies to get hit by the pandemic, so they moved it out. And now it looks like they're going to get hit by it again. And it's like, man, that sucks. Like,
Yeah.
I love James Bond. I can't wait. It looks so good. But, you know, I don't even know what to say. Like, yeah, just delay it again, I guess. Like, put it to next summer. I at this point, I've been waiting so long, it doesn't matter. But again, if you have not seen the trailer for Top Gun 2 Maverick, go look it on YouTube. If you have a really big TV, especially, turn up the sound, because movies aren't made like that anymore. They don't use practical effects like what we're gonna see. Looks like we're gonna see in that movie, and I'm really stoked. Like, I think in terms of like movies that I want to see in a theater, Top Gun 2 is like top of the list. Like, it has to be, right? Like, are you excited at all? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, once I'm sitting down watching it, but it is what it is for now.
You're just like, it's just another Tom Cruise movie to you, hey?
Just gotta wait. No, I love Tom Cruise movies for sure, but yeah, it's just we gotta wait. They
Yeah.
keep showing that trailer. It's a great trailer for sure.
Yeah. It'll time will tell. I heard, I was listening to a podcast today and they're talking about Tony Scott and kind of his like bombastic filmmaking style and kind of how over the top and exciting his movies were. And like Top Gun is probably the best example of it. Crimson Tide is another great example of it. But Top Gun, which is on Netflix in Canada right now, if you haven't seen it, go watch it, is a perfect action movie. Like, it's so much fun. The characters are all charismatic and likable. The love story, though feeling maybe a little tacked on, is entertaining. Like, the first time he meets the girl, they sing a song in a bar. Like, you can't really go wrong with it. So yeah, I don't know. This is me just basically, endorsing the Top Gun franchise, but I can't wait. So anyway, that's what's going on. We'll be back with more Tower Babble soon. I think we'll need to sit down and talk about some of the latest stories. There's some big ones. We'd obviously mentioned the probably the biggest one, which is Scarlett Johansson suing Disney. But there's others, and we'll need to touch on those. So look for that. Dan probably be back for that show as well. And until then, we'll talk to you then. Take care. Okay. That was a good review.
Not bad.